Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another edition of the Itrad Fantasy Podcast. It is Saturday, the 25th, and we are heading into week three. Fortunately, we had kind of a shitty Thursday night game that didn't have too many fantasy implications, really just on the Panthers side. But we're gonna get into it. We got our power rankings to start off. We're gonna start off our power rankings, and as we go through each team, we're gonna do a little recap over what's been happening the last 2 weeks, start of the season. So I'll go first with my 11th ranked team right now. I have Bad Vibes Forever at my last place spot. We did see a quite interesting trade go down between this team and Team Moss Nike. We had George Kittle. Who was it? George Kittle,
Javante.
George Kittle, Trey Lance, Javante Williams, and Jalen Waddle traded away to Moss Nike for Brian Edwards, Dallas Goedert, and Lamar Jackson. Oh, my bad. Traded.
Yeah, Waddle ended up going to Castro.
Yeah. Okay. As for the first week that happened, worked out in Castro's favor. Lamar had a nice game. And then Kittle had a stinker. Williams still hasn't hit his stride. Waddle now with no Tua for the next 3-4 weeks. We don't really know what's going to happen. So we'll see what happens with that. But other than that, Nick's team looks, to me, not too promising. Clyde Edwards-Helaire looks like he's going to be a bust for the second year in a row. Kittle, I don't really know what's going on with Kittle right now. He's not getting the targets. He's being used really as a blocker in that offense. We know Shanahan loves to run the ball. Chris Carson has had some okay performances so far. Last week's was very touchdown dependent, 13 carries, 31 yards, but he got 2 goal line touchdowns, so that really got him into that double digit mark. But who do you have? Oh, and also Nick is what is it? He's 1-1, right?
Yeah, I think it's actually. Correct me if I'm wrong. He may be the lowest scoring team.
Yeah, he had just 200 points.
Right? Yeah.
200 points scored. The next lowest being 232.
Yeah, that's very unlike Nick too. He's known for.
Yeah, it is unlike Nick. So Nick has been off to a little bit of a slow start. So we'll see if he can pick it up. But for right now, I got him as my last place team.
So yeah, I'll talk about Nick in a little bit, but still for the second consecutive week in a row, I have Castro with Mass Nike still at the 11th spot. So like you mentioned, that trade, I was obviously a big voice against that. I think Castro made a big mistake completing that trade. I mean, yes, Lamar had a good week and all, but despite Kittle's slow start, he's still a top asset at the position in fantasy. I mean, he drafted Javante Williams in the 5th round and just gave up on him after a week. It was kind of a known thing that he was going to take a little bit to hit his stride, like most rookie running backs do. But I mean, this week he came close against Kenny. It was 150 to 137. Evans had a boom week. We'll see what happens this week. We'll get into that a little bit later. That always helps. Other than that, he had the Bills defense put up a whopping 25, and then Lamar dropped 35. So I'm very worried about this team going forward. He has both Dallas running backs as his RB1 and 2. I don't know what the upside in that is. I mean, you're basically just preying on a floor at that point. And, I mean, that's just to name a few concerns with that team. Won't get too into it.
Yeah, going right into it, I have Moss Nike ranked as my number 10 team. So, his RBs are looking somewhat sketchy, I guess you could say right now. The thing about me with this trade was Castro's team was drafted, seemed like a kind of long-term strategy. He took Javante Williams in the 5th round, didn't take a quarterback. So it was looking like, to me, what he was going to do is kind of run a stream first week or two, see who he could get off waivers that turns into like a capable top 12 starting quarterback. But he went with the trade. and worked out in his favor last week. So we'll see how it goes going forward. But my concern about this team, Mike Evans is a concern for me. Him being your wide receiver number two, I mean, he's got a strong wide receiver number one, so it's not a really bad duo for him there. But there's really not a lot of depth on this team, especially at running back. Elijah Mitchell, I think, is out this week, right?
Yep. Yep. San Francisco's depleted. I think they only have Trey Sermon this week.
Yeah. Lamar going forward, he always has that rushing upside.
Yep.
But if a team is able to, stop that kind of ability from him, like he had 18 points versus the Raiders, and I think that was still with like 80, yeah, it was 86 rushing yards. But the passing touchdowns don't look like they're really going to be there this year so far, at least. So if he doesn't get in with his legs in the end zone, he can fall out of that top 15 kind of QB scoring range. So we'll see what happens with that.
For sure, for sure. So at my number 10 spot, I have Julian and the Cardiac Kids, also at the same spot as last week. I made these rankings before the whole Christian McCaffrey situation. I'm not sure. I mean, considering Casher's team, how that will affect him next week. But looking at his performance last week, he lost to Kevin, score 150 to 125. I mean, his team didn't do terrible, his good players at least, but I mean, he did pay for starting Anthony Schwartz. It didn't take Sherlock Holmes to figure that out, put up a nice goose egg. David Njoku, 3.8. I mean, I don't know. Other than that, I mean, Terry McLaurin, Keenan Allen, that's a solid wide receiver duo. No real complaints there. Damian Harris, I was a little bit concerned about as an RB2 because he's not used too much as a pass catcher. But I mean, he's been fine in the end zone. He's been putting up decent numbers. So, I mean, overall, this team without Christian McCaffrey, I'm pretty scared because he traded me Mike Davis. I don't know. He does have Chuba Hubbard, but he might be okay, but he's definitely no Christian McCaffrey. So, I mean, we'll see. I am worried about them going forward, though, especially the next couple of weeks without no CMC.
Yeah, I actually had Julian as my number 9 ranked team. So, yeah, this team without CMC looks a little scary if his wide receivers don't carry. Chuba Hubbard, I'm assuming will get that role. I mean, he's no CMC, but we saw what Mike Davis was able to do in CMC's role last year. So hopefully for Julian, that could repeat. But Julian's team, the trade he did with you, I didn't really get. I mean, I feel like you aren't really going to get that much production out of your tight end that you can't find on the waiver, where you're going to have to trade your RB2 for that. But I mean, hey, we'll see how it works out for him.
Yeah. So that was your number 9. So my number 9 is Nick with Bad Vibes Forever. I actually dropped him 8 spots from last week. So despite making that trade, he's kind of free falling for me here. He only put up 81 points last week. Quarterback, major concern for him at this point.
Major concern.
Yeah, I mean, George Kittle, in the long term, I think he won that trade, but his team as a whole just did not show up last week. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, only 2.6 points. Antonio Brown, 2.7. This lineup is just littered with a bunch of lack of consistency. George Kittle, Clyde Edwards, Antonio Brown. I mean, even Diggs out of the gate, these guys haven't given you that floor that you're hoping for out of those positions on a week-to-week basis. Najee Harris took a big step forward. He looked good, especially in the receiving game. He put up a solid game, 19.1. Carson, like you mentioned before, he found the end zone twice, but his yardage total, I think he only had 30 yards.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this team, I don't know. They're kind of all over the place.
Last year, I was the team who had no quarterback. My starting quarterback was Drew Brees, which was a huge flop. And I lost a lot of games because I just did not have a quarterback. I really don't think long term you could have a team that succeeds at all if you don't have a starting quarterback. So that's why I had Nick ranked last.
No, I mean, in Nick's case, he's probably hoping that Trey Lance at some point becomes that top 10, top 12 option with his use in the ground game and all. But for now,
By the time it starts, it might be too late.
Through that. And that's the same kind of thing with Javonte Williams. Who knows if by the time these guys hit their strides, it's going to be too late.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Going forward, my number 8 spot, I have the Kearney Satriales. Mike's team, he has a lot of boom or bust potential there, and he hasn't seen the boom yet with Tyreek Hill and Devontae Adams. His running back core, not really what he was hoping for drafting James Robinson. Does not seem like Urban Meyer is a big James Robinson fan. Is it Tyrell Williams or Tyrese? Tyson Williams. Going forward, he should have good volume. I just don't know if the Ravens will kind of like to introduce Latavius Murray into a bigger role there, or their back running back by committee is a little confusing to keep up in fantasy. But so far, Williams has looked good. So if Williams could kind of be his RB1 and get him 10, 12 points a week, as long as Adams and Hill find that boom potential, his team, I think, will be good going forward.
Definitely. So let me see who I got. At number 8, I actually have Kenny with Black Sheep. Keep in mind, I did these rankings before Thursday night. After seeing Cooks and DJ Moore play as well as they did, this may have affected his ranking a little bit. But nonetheless, he's up a spot from last week. He edged out Castro last week, 150 to 137. And overall, his team just came to play. Everybody did what they were supposed to do. Other than Alvin Kamara, he kind of is the one spot that stands out to me. He still put up 150, and Kamara only scored 7. But Tyler Lockett, he is known as a boom or bust option, but he's done nothing but boom so far. I think he has well over 30 points the last 2 weeks. And honestly, it doesn't look like there's any end in sight. That chemistry between him and Wilson, it's really second to none on those deep passes. Justin Jefferson, he, I think, scored his first touchdown of the year. Yeah, he had 18.5. Rodgers lit up Detroit, 27 points. Patriots D, 20. So, I mean, Kenny's right there. Very solid team.
I actually have Black Sheep as my number 7 spot. DJ Moore is looking like he wants to finish as a top 5 receiver in fantasy this year. He's just getting a lot of volume without the TDs, which is, always a great thing to see. 22 points without any touchdowns. And he had 15 points week 1 with no touchdowns. Then he had a touchdown last week with 79 yards and 8 catches, but 12 targets on Thursday, 11 targets last week. He's definitely looking good for Kenny. And then he also has Tyler Lockett, who's been on a little 2-week tear. So we'll see if he can keep that up. Usually Lockett's problem is that consistency, but he looks good right now. Rodgers, his running backs is the reason why he's lower on my list. Kamara looks like you don't really know what to expect out of him right now, and Miles Sanders not a fan of that pick. So
same here, same points. So for me, not too far from where you had him, I have Mike with Kearney Satriales at number 7, down 2 spots from a week ago. So Mike kind of put up a bit of a stinker last week, only 105 points. You had Robbie Anderson, Mike Gesicki, James Robinson, all in the single digits. It's never good to see. Eagles defense just wasn't a good play. I think Mike actually had the Bears defense at one point and then dropped them. And if he would have kept them, he would have beat Guy. So that hurts. Tyreek Hill, also I didn't mention, only 6 points last week. So normally he's not that big of a boomer bust. He normally has a bit safer of a floor. But Baltimore just kind of sold out to take him out of that game. And they succeeded. So not what you want to see as a Tyreek Hill owner, though. Most weeks, he'll be fine, though. That connection between him and Adams is still top in the league. And Russell Wilson still cooking. 25 points last week. I think he had 28 in week 1. I mean, the matchups are there for him. He's got Minnesota this week, so he should continue his tear. But overall, the running backs on this team are my biggest concern. Between James Robinson and Tyson Williams, I don't really see a definitive RB1, really even RB2. They're kind of just both fringe options, so we'll see how far those receivers can take them. That's really what it's going to come down to.
In my number 6 spot, I have Love Hurts. I had Kevin a lot higher coming into the season, but so far, Antonio Gibson isn't looking like the running back that he was hyped up to be. I'm pretty sure the quote was that Rivera wanted to use him in a CMC like role, which we haven't really seen yet. 11.8 points week 1, 9.3 last week.
Yeah.
He's getting the carries, but it's the catches that aren't there at all. He had 3 catches week 1, and he had 2 catches against the Giants last Thursday for 4 yards. J.D. McKissick looks like the receiving option out of that backfield, so it doesn't seem like there's a lot of upside in the receiving game for Antonio Gibson going forward. Austin Eckler has been good. He had 22 last week, and he had 11 week. I thought he had a better week 1. He actually had no catches.
That was surprising. Week 1.
Surprising. It doesn't seem. Well, he had 9 last week, so maybe it was just a little.
That's more what we're used to.
Yeah. Julio, I feel like going forward on Kevin's team isn't the wide receiver 1 anymore. I think Kupp is.
Yeah.
It was stated during Sunday Night Football versus the Bears that Matthew Stafford and Cooper Kupp have breakfast together every single morning before practice and watch film. Not something you want to hear as a Robert Woods owner, but obviously those breakfast sessions have been paying off on the field as Kupp's been going ballistic these past 2 weeks.
Yeah.
38 points last week, 26 week 1, 2 100-yard games, touchdowns in both of them. So Kupp looks like he's wide receiver 1 in that offense going forward. Maybe we'll see a little bit more Robert Woods action if teams start keying on Kupp, try to take him out the game. Odell Beckham Jr. is activated for this Sunday, so we'll see how he does there. Kevin's inserting him into his flex play there. Kyle Pitts has looked good. He is a rookie tight end, which usually struggle, but I mean he's had decent performances. 12 points, 7 points. He had 6+ targets in both games. But Hurts, I think, is a great option going forward, fantasy-wise as well. So if Gibson could pick it up, I think Kevin's team definitely could do better. But right now, he's just not looking like – I think he was the second-round pick, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So he's not really living up to that value.
Number 6, right? So at my number 6, I have Wilson with You Wish up 2 spots from last week. So last week, Wilson took down Sonny 127 to 100. Wilson kind of got the shit end of the stick week 1. I think he played you, and he put up a decent amount between 150 and 160, but you put up like 170 or 180. So, I mean, Wilson has put up a decent amount of points this season, and for him, he got his first win. I'm looking at his lineup. I don't think he had one person under double digits except for Harrison Buckner. So, I mean, TJ Hawkinson and Swift, I mean, I was highly against having 2 Detroit Lions, but I mean, they're putting up numbers. That garbage time game against San Fran, they really went off. And I mean, they're probably going to have that game script a lot going forward. So maybe those picks weren't as bad as I once thought. He is a Robert Woods owner, like you were just mentioning, so he's probably a little bit worried about Cooper Kupp. But I mean, I think Woods is going to be fine going forward. Maybe not as a wide receiver 1, but definitely a solid wide receiver 2. Calvin Ridley, he's a stud. He got in the end zone last week. Chubb, he's probably got the safest floor of any running back in terms of yardage and touchdown potential. And Stafford, a bit of a down week last week, only 17. But again, he's one of the safer options. So, I mean, Wilson's team probably has one of the safest floors in the league. It's that upside that worries me. But right now, number 6, I feel like that's a fair spot for him.
Going on to my number 5 spot, I have Fear Pita's Tigers. Sonny's first-round pick has not panned out yet. I don't think he will end up panning out. I was not very high on Barkley going into the season on our first episode.
Yeah.
I don't know if – I'm not necessarily saying he doesn't have it in him still, but just coming off the injury and that team is kind of a mess, so I'm just not sold on him yet. But a bright spot on Sonny's team, he does have who looks like to be this season, if he can keep it up, QB1, Kyler Murray, who's been doing great. David Montgomery looks good. He's basically the sole running back who gets the touches in that offense as his RB2, not a bad option. DK Metcalf has been a little lackluster to start the season, but I think that'll definitely pick up. Sonny's team, again, a team I feel like that has a pretty safe floor. He's got 2 empty bench spots right now, so not carrying a lot of depth. But like I said, safe floor from all his players. Mark Andrews, who is Lamar's a very tight end friendly quarterback. Claypool, I think, has potential to be better than he still had. I think he had. Did he have a touchdown last week?
Claypool, he had 9 points last week.
Um,
But that should pick up without
I
Deontay.
think he has more potential going forward. He had 9 targets, only brought in 3 catches, but yeah, I think Sonny at number 5 is pretty fair. He's got a pretty solid team, so.
Yep. So we're actually on the same page. I also have Sonny at 5, down 1 spot from last week. So his team underperformed a little bit last week, only 100 points. But like you mentioned, Kyler Murray is on a tear so far this season. Like he could put up record-setting numbers at this point. I think he had 35 week 1, 36 last week. He's got Jacksonville this week, so I mean, maybe 37 or higher. Saquon was a bit of a risky pick at number 5. And this week, I think, is going to tell us a lot about that pick. I mean, he's got the Falcons. If there was ever a get-right week, it would be this week for him. He's coming off 10 days rest. They played Thursday night last week. So, I mean, if Saquon doesn't go out there and do something, I would be very worried as an owner of his. David Monty is an RB2. That's as solid as you can get. DK hasn't performed to wide receiver 1 standards so far, but that's because Tyler Lockett has pretty much done everything. I think at some point that's going to balance out.
Yeah.
Probably starting this week. Chase Claypool, 9 targets last week. Like you said, only 3 catches. But at least for this week, maybe next week, he should see an uptick in success without Deontay Johnson. Because he's definitely Big Ben's go-to. And Mark Andrews, too. He's kind of disappointed. I mean, for his standards, in terms of tight ends, he's done okay. But he's definitely going to come around, too, and start finding the end zone. So overall, number 5 spot, I think that's right where Sonny should be. Team with some upside, but it could kind of go either way depending on the running back position.
Moving on to number 4, I actually have you. I forget where I had you week 1.
I think 6 or 7.
But after seeing Derrick Henry's, I did not know if Derrick Henry really had that in him still, considering the workload he's in the past 2 seasons. I thought there might have been a little bit of a burnout, but obviously not, because he put up 185 yards, I think it was.
237 total. His usage in the receiving game is nuts, too.
35 carries. 35. That is insane.
41 touches.
35 carries, 6 catches, 49.7 points. Mind you, I'm pretty sure Derrick Henry only had like 6 points going.
In the first half, he had nothing. Yeah, that was all second half.
A like 42-point performance in one half for me. I honestly, Derrick Henry also has a very, very favorable schedule going forward. He's got Indianapolis, then he's got the Jets and the Jaguars. And he still plays the Texans twice a year. So I think Derrick Henry is about to be the right pick. You took him over Kamara, right?
Yeah, number 3.
Looks like that was definitely the right decision. Doesn't seem like Derrick Henry's going anywhere. I think Mixon as an RB2 option is pretty nice. I think Allen's going to pick it up. CeeDee Lamb looks like he's pretty favorable wide receiver 2 option. Mike Davis now in your flex, which is not bad, you know. But yeah, I like your team going forward.
Thank you. I appreciate it. We'll get into your team in a little bit, but for now at number 4, I have Kevin. with Love Hurts up 2 spots from last week. So he took down Jewel 150 to 125. Overall, it's a really good day for him. Hurts and Eckler, both about 22 points. Solid game. Like you mentioned, Antonio Gibson, that's the one thing that sticks out here. For where he took him, he has not lived up to that Christian McCaffrey type expectation. His usage in the receiving game, it's kind of concerning because J.D. McKissick looked good. I mean, he had some big plays. He's a more natural receiver. So, I mean, for Gibson, you're hoping for that work on the ground and him finding the end zone for him to live up to that draft selection as high as he took him. Cooper Kupp was a great pick, though. I think he got him in the 4th round.
Yeah,
I don't think he's going anywhere either, too. Like these first 2 weeks, putting up the numbers that he's putting up, he has a pretty safe floor. I mean, like you said, him and Stafford got that chemistry. Even if he's not putting up 100 yards and scoring 2 touchdowns, he's still going to catch you 5 or 6 passes, probably get 70 or 80 yards. I mean, if 11, 13 points is your floor for your wide receiver 2, that's not bad because he still has Julio, who's starting to get into rhythm with Tannehill. Last week, he should have done even better. He had a touchdown called back that shouldn't have. I mean, that was one of the worst calls I've seen. I mean, overall, it's a really good team here. Kyle Pitts hasn't even hit his stride yet. He's getting the targets. He's not finding the end zone yet, but down the stretch, Kyle Pitts is going to show why he was a top 5 pick. Last week, and on his bench, one bright spot I don't think anyone really saw coming last week, Michael Pittman. Against that Rams defense, I think he put up 120 or 130 yards. I mean, him and Wentz seem to have a chemistry in the passing game of that offense. I don't know about Wentz's health, but going forward, Pittman could end up being the flex on this team. And that would be a pretty good option.
Moving on to my number 3 spot, I have You Wish. Basically disagree with everything you said about Wilson before. Really safe floor for his entire team. Stafford in a nice Sean McVay offense. Chubb, one of the better floors for your RB1. Swift has been looking nice. Ridley, clear-cut wide receiver 1 in that offense. Robert Woods, I think, will pick it up, and Hawkinson's been
awesome.
Has been great these first 2 weeks. We'll see what happens if key teams start trying to eliminate him from the. My only concern with that is the Lions don't really have any other weapons to make teams worry about outside of Hawkinson, so that could be his downfall.
Very true. Yeah, same concerns for me. So at number 3, I actually have you, the Sharing Warriors. Down 1 spot from last week. So as you mentioned, we played last week. I beat you 134 to 115. Your team didn't do terrible by any stretch. Dak and Amari is pretty much the obvious reason why you lost. Only 7 points from Dak, 5 points from Amari. Considering what they did in week 1, that's like falling off a cliff. But for the most part this season, they should not do that. They should have a pretty safe floor. Aaron Jones feasted on the Lions. He's going to continue to perform like a top 5 back the rest of the way. I'm a bit concerned about Myles Gaskin as an RB2. I mean, they do use him in the receiving game a decent amount. Now you've got Brissett at quarterback. Maybe he gets a little more work, a couple more checkdowns, get him around 10, 11, 12 points a game. Wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. Adam Thielen, defying all expectations. All this guy does is score touchdowns. He had 14 last year. Coming into this year, I said, no way, you can't do that. I mean, that was a fluke, not reasonable, but I think he's on pace to do that again. 2 in week 1, another one last week. Got Seattle this week. Pretty good matchups the rest of the way. I mean, Thielen as a wide receiver, too, is pretty deadly. Darren Waller, he had Pittsburgh last week, so that was a pretty tough draw for him. Still put up 12 points, though. You taking him in the 2nd round, that might go down as the best pick in the 2nd round. They love Waller in that offense. I mean, we saw that Monday night game. Derek Carr just wants to get the ball in his hands. He's right there with Kelsey.
8 targets in a row.
Yeah, it's insane. He is such a valuable asset to have. And then Mike Williams and Devontae Smith between your 2 flex options, even Darnell Mooney if you want to throw him in there. You could just play the best matchup. I mean, you're really deep at receiver. The only blemish on this team is RB2 right now, and it's not even the worst blemish in the world. So overall, a really good team.
Moving on to number 2, I have the New Jersey Sopranos. Um, the guys' teams looked pretty good so far. I think he put up 172 week
Against
one.
me. Yep.
Mahomes and Kelsey stack. My concern with this team, Melvin Gordon, Jonathan Taylor.
Yep.
Jonathan Taylor hasn't really lived up to the hype yet. He had 56 yards and 51 yards week 1 and 2. Put up 6 points last week because he only had one catch for 1 yard. Melvin Gordon, I don't think is the greatest option going forward, especially if Javonte Williams ends up getting more carries. Had 8 points last week. He had 11 carries for 101 yards and a touchdown week 1. What was it? I think in the fourth quarter with like
Yeah, it's a 70-yard run.
75-yard touchdown run that brought him into a double-digit performance. So those also Jamar. I'm not too high on Jamar Chase just yet. He had 2 good games so far, but they were not very promising volume wise.
Yeah.
He had 5 catches for 101 yards and a touchdown week 1. That touchdown came late in the game that kind of got him to those 22 points.
Yep.
He had 2 catches for 54 yards last week. And I think the one touchdown catch he had was another long touchdown.
Yep.
So that's what kind of boosted him in there. Don't know how reliable he will be going forward because that Cincinnati O line does not look great.
Yeah.
Jamar Chase, I mean not Jamar Chase, Joe Burrow's kind of been under duress. Uh, who else does he have? Cortland Sutton, with Judy out, looks like he's the number one option there.
Yeah.
So his team's he's got a little depth. He's got Gronk on the bench. Not that Gronk will ever start for him, so
Yeah.
kind of a waste. But Gallup is coming back in what
A couple more weeks.
yeah,
Yeah.
3 weeks. Michael Carter maybe could do something. I don't know because the Jets are just so bad.
Yeah.
But going forward, we'll see if guys' team can keep it up.
Yeah. It's the last standing undefeated team. We'll see. So at number 2, I actually have the Diego Juniors up 5 spots from last week. He took down Nick 144 to 81. And I mean, this is a really solid team, and I don't even think they hit their stride yet. He's got A.J. Brown and Allen Robinson, who have both, I mean, for their standards, disappointed out of the gate. A.J. Brown had a bunch of targets last week, only 7 points. Yeah, 7.3. Allen Robinson got a touchdown. He dropped another one. He should have had an even better game. Only 10 points. But I mean, he took them in the second and third round, so he's obviously expecting a lot more. And I think down the stretch, those guys will definitely start performing like number one options. Dalvin Cook, he put up 18 last week. He's been solid out of the gate. He is a little banged up right now, so durability concerns are definitely the one thing weighing against him. But then at quarterback, he's got Tom Brady playing like, I don't know, prime of his career, like 07. He has 9 touchdowns through 2 weeks. I think 30 points, 30 fantasy points in both games. And I mean, I don't see anyone stopping that Tampa offense. I'm pretty sure they've scored 30 points in like 8 or 9 straight games dating back to last year. So, I mean, having Tom Brady at the helm of your fantasy team could be doing a lot worse. Noah Fant is also benefiting without Judy. He's getting a ton of targets. He got a touchdown last week. He gets a lot of those dink and dunks type routes. So, I mean, he has a pretty safe floor for now. And even Juju. I mean, I wasn't that big on him coming into this year. And they're still finding ways to get him the ball. I think he had a rushing touchdown last week, so he's another one without Deontay Johnson. He should definitely see an uptick in volume. And I mean, even on his bench, he's got Marquise Brown, Henry Ruggs. These are guys who will probably never see his lineup, but I mean, even they're performing. So maybe he could flip them, get a stronger running back, or just honestly whatever he wants. He's deep at receiver. So it's a really dangerous team going forward.
I actually have Diego at my number 1 spot. Basically agree with everything you said. Brady's looking nice. Cook looks like with CMC missing some time might be number 1 back in fantasy from now. Darrell Henderson's been playing very well. I didn't think Darrell Henderson would be playing that good.
Yeah.
Brown, I think, is going to pick it up. Fant looks like a safe option, and he's got some depth on the bench. So
Yeah. So we got 1 and 2 flip-flopped. I actually have the New Jersey Sopranos, the last standing undefeated team, at the number 1 spot, up 2 spots from last week. Let me pull up his game. So yeah, he beat Mike, not really in all too convincing fashion last week, only 113 to 105. So pretty low scoring game. That Mahomes and Kelsey stack, though, is just going to be a scary thing every week. You got 26 from Mahomes this week, 26 from Kelsey, too. So it seems like every week Travis Kelsey's scoring a touchdown. Mahomes is throwing 3. So honestly, this team will probably go as far as that stack will take them.
yeah,
You got Jonathan Taylor, who's kind of disappointed out of the gate, but I'm not too concerned about him going forward. The schedule will get a little bit lighter, and that line's going to start to find their rhythm going forward. They're still a top 5 line in the league. Chris Godwin, if there was one option to have in that Tampa passing game, I would probably pick him. Evans usually draws the top coverage and is more touchdown dependent. Antonio Brown, he's not always on the field in 2 wide receiver sets. So, I mean, Godwin, he's going to be the guy, probably 5 or 6 catches a game. Maybe he breaks one, gets over 100 yards, and at least 1 touchdown here and there. I mean, he's not the worst wide receiver 1 in the world to have. He really talked him up in the preseason, and
yeah.
he's starting to pan out. Jamar Chase, I mean, you really can't ask for a better start for a rookie receiver. Touchdown in week 1, touchdown in week 2. He's another one. I don't think he's even hit his stride yet. He could really pan out as a wide receiver too. And I'm pretty sure that, what's his name? T. Higgins is going to be out at least this game. So, I mean, there's opportunity for more volume to find his way.
Yeah.
And other than that, he started Nelson Aguilar last week for some reason. He has Sutton on his bench, Sterling Shepard, even Gronk. I mean, he's deeper than what meets the eye. He's got some pretty good options out there. So for now, he deserves to be the number 1 team. He's earned it.
All right. So moving into our next segment, we're gonna have a guest enter the podcast. He was supposed to come on later, but said he's falling asleep right now. So well, gonna bring him on now. Let me call him. He answers. Hello?
Jewel?
Yo, is it working? Hold on a sec.
Yeah, you're in.
It's hard to do on my phone.
What's
Let's
up,
get-
Dwayne? How you doing?
Pretty good. How are we doing?
Good. We just got done with our power rankings. You want to know where you landed?
Sure, let's hear it.
I had you at number 9.
I had you at number 10.
How that?
Take it. The CMC injury didn't help.
No, mine was before the CMC injury.
Jeez, man. Fuck you.
Dwayne, I got some questions for you while we hop on this podcast right here. My biggest question being is, how do you feel about the state of your team moving forward without CMC? And actually, no, just answer that for now. Yeah, answer that for now.
I feel slightly suspect, but I could say it would be much worse if I didn't have Hubbard,
Agreed.
which I never really thought about cutting him because I foresaw this situation, honestly, just because, I don't know, I just have a bad feeling with drafting CMC last year and having the same thing happen.
Yeah.
But I'm more concerned about this week right now.
Yeah.
Diego.
Diego was actually the number 1 and 2 ranked team on the power rankings. So definitely fighting an uphill battle going to this week with only 6 points from CMC. Another question. I want to talk about the trade that you did with Eddie. Do you have any regrets trading Mike Davis after the CMC injury, or are you still big on Tyler Higbee?
No, I don't have any regrets trading him.
Just take me through your the thought process. Like, why did you dump Mike Davis? So,
I don't know. I just
what
feel
were your
like
concerns with him?
I feel like Cordell Patterson is really going to be like the number one guy there, getting fucking targets, and I don't know. Mike Davis's ceiling is just way too low for me to continue to rely on him. And honestly, the only reason I traded for Higbee specifically is because I'm fucked at tight end, like really fucked. And obviously, starting Njoku and getting 3 from him last week didn't help me. So I'm also very big on Higbee going forward. I think he could finish as top 8 tight end.
Speaking of tight ends, who was the tight end you drafted? Was it Gesicki?
Yeah, I drafted Gesicki and Hooper, thinking that I guess I could just get away with taking 2 late guys, but it didn't really work in my favor.
Another question. Take me through this start last week of Anthony Schwartz. What was going through your mind with that one?
I guess, 2 things. The first being bias and wanting to see my players like live in the stadium and shit. And the other thing being Njoku and Schwartz just having really good week ones and being like the focal point of the offense. They both had Njoku had 3 catches for 80 yards. Schwartz had like 3 or 4 catches for 80 yards as well. So I don't know. I thought that they would at least get me something, but didn't work out that well. And also, I didn't really have much to work with besides Marvin Jones on my bench because of Ayuk being just unplayable, and then I had no one else really. Mike Davis against the Buccaneers,
Yeah. Ed, you got any questions for our guest?
You kind of took both of mine with the whole trade recap and all. But let me ask you, Jewel, are you worried about your team? Do you still see yourself getting in the playoffs? You panicking early on? How are you feeling?
No, I'm not panicking. I still see myself making the playoffs.
Okay.
I definitely don't think I'm as low as you guys are ranking me.
Where would you put yourself?
Yeah, where would you put yourself?
Fucking, I mean, not at 10.
So where?
So where?
Where would you put yourself?
Like what range?
I would say 6, maybe 7.
All right.
I mean, 2 weeks went by. Ed, I was in your top 2. I don't know what changed much besides a CMC injury, which isn't going to last more than 3 weeks.
I mean, your roster, like your team decision. You started Anthony Schwartz and David Njoku last week. Where was I supposed to put you?
I don't know. They're both not on my roster now, so it doesn't change much about.
I mean, that was just shot.
I think the concerns for your team came from Damian Harris not really having a lot of receiving upside, and with CMC gone, you don't really have much receiving upside from your running backs.
Yeah.
Herbert looked. I mean, he hasn't looked amazing, but he hasn't had more than 16 points in 2 weeks. And that was versus a Cowboys defense that hasn't really been great with pass coverage. So that was a little concerning for me. I thought that was going to be a big game for Herbert. And obviously, when with that stack you have with Keenan and Herbert, if Herbert's not having a lot of big games, that's going to hurt Keenan's boom production as well. McLaurin, though, is I think your best player now that CMC's gone.
Yeah, agreed.
I mean, I don't think 1 week of Herbert and Keenan Allen not blowing up is going to mean much. I think they're going to do just fine in the future.
Yeah, overall, they should be fine.
I mean, it's just seeing that it's against the Cowboys. Everyone thinks that it's going to be much better than like I did as well than it was. But Keenan Allen still had 100 yards with no touchdowns.
Any that's it for questions for me.
Let me ask you an off-topic fantasy, Jewel. What's your prediction Sunday, Bears Browns? How do you see this one playing out?
I see the Browns
What's the final score? Dominating?
Chicago.
Dominating fashion win.
So what's the score? What do you see the final being?
I wouldn't say dominate, but I see us winning by at least 10.
Fair enough.
Fair.
With that being said, anything else you would like to say to the league and who's watching, Jewel?
I mean, not really. I would tell Ed that he fucking sucks and stop offering me trades. He's right here, so.
We'll see. I mean, we just made a trade, dude.
Well, with that, I'll let you head off, get your rest. I know you said you were tired, ready to go to bed, so.
Yeah, I'm about to go stuff my face with some cake too.
All right, well, thanks for being on, Jewel. I appreciate you showing up. Hopefully, we could have you again sometime. Always a pleasure.
For sure.
Sounds good. Good podcast.
All right.
Talk to you boys later.
Peace, Jewel.
Peace.
All right, Julian has left. Always an interesting character to have on the show. I hope in the coming weeks we could have more people want to be on. It's always better, when we got league members joining, interacting. Always makes for a fun show. Unfortunately, we have specifically one person I want to get on who, I don't know, just refuses.
Weird. Quote unquote, meh.
So, I mean, you know who you are. Hopefully, if you're watching this can change your mind. I want to have you on the show, ask you some questions, some comments from you, but can't really do much about it. And so we're going to move on to our next segment. We have our love-hate. I'm going to start off with my loves for this week. I have a love of Claypool versus Cincinnati. Cincinnati, not primarily a fearful defense, and Deontay Johnson also out. I think Claypool will definitely see an uptick in production. I think he might be a boom this week. I think he could possibly have a 2-touchdown game. Ben loves throwing to him deep. So I think Claypool's got a good game ahead of him this week. My other love, more obvious one, I have fucking Dalvin Cook versus Seattle. We all saw Derrick Henry absolutely dismantle Seattle's run defense last week. I think Cook will have a great game. Seattle not really defensively has figured out yet. Who did they play week 1?
Seattle?
Oh, they played Indy. That's right.
Wait, where you at? I got fucking ad playing right now. Sorry. I couldn't hear you.
No, I was just talking about Cook, but you get into your loves for this week.
All right, word. So I have one quarterback, one running back, one receiver. So at quarterback, Kyler Murray versus Jacksonville this week. I mean, he's been on a tear. He destroyed Tennessee, destroyed Minnesota. I mean, Jacksonville 0-2. They've lost to Houston. They look like they are absolutely lost out there. So, I mean, the only thing that could work against Kyler Murray this week is going up like 35-0 right off the bat and then just sitting down. So, I mean, he should absolutely just pop the fuck off, really. I don't know how you want to say it. At least 30 points, no less. Running back, Najee Harris for Cincinnati. So, Pittsburgh without their top receiver this week. I think they're going to turn more to the rookie, more favorable matchup. Maybe they get that running identity kind of cleared up here. Najee maybe goes over 100. And then at receiver, I have DK against Seattle. No, he's on against Minnesota. So yeah, Lockett has kind of shouldered the receiving load in this offense so far. But I think some of that big playability from DK is just long overdue at this point. I would not be surprised if he had maybe 2, I don't know about 3, probably 2 touchdowns this week. and that's all my loves.
All right, so for my hate this week, I have Kamara versus New England. We saw Kamara have a bad game last week going against New. I'm pretty sure it's in Foxborough as well. Going into Foxborough versus the Patriots defense, I think they'll, considering Kamara's really the only big playmaker in that offense right now, I think he'll be the focal point of Belichick's defensive game plan, and I don't see a very great fantasy week from him. My other hate is Mixon versus Pittsburgh.
It's fair.
Pittsburgh, tough defense to go up against. Is it in Pittsburgh or is it in Cincinnati?
It's a good question. I'm trying to pull up the thing. It's in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, in Pittsburgh, divisional game. I think that defense is going to eat up the Bengals alive, so I don't see a lot from him this week.
I agree. I think there's a stat. He's only ever scored like once in all of his games against Pittsburgh, so the track record definitely doesn't suggest a lot of success for him this week. My hates, I don't really have a quarterback that I hate this week. I think all the matchups are pretty good. Antonio Gibson, who we were talking about earlier, that Buffalo run defense is for real. They have a really good front seven. Gibson, if he doesn't find the end zone this week, could very easily finish in single digits again, which would definitely be concerning if you had him. And for receiver, I have Mike Evans. So last week, he went off 2 touchdowns against Atlanta. The week before, I think he only had 5 points. He's got a really tough Rams pass defense. Ramsey very well. Could be shadowing him. And if that's the case, single digits are also very possible for him again.
That's our love-hate for this week. Moving on to pick'ems. Before we get started with pick'ems, you want to maybe run through these a little quicker? We're approaching over the hour mark, I think, right now.
Yeah, we could just run through.
Podcast. Don't want to make it too long.
Yeah, it's fine.
But just to start off, we have Nike versus Kearney Satriales. I have this the upset of the week. I see Castro getting his first win here. Looking at the matchups, I like Lamar versus Detroit. Pollard and Elliott. The only reason I think he could get away with this week is because I don't see big games out of Mike's running backs. As we were saying before, Mike doesn't really have a definitive RB1.
Mm-hmm.
And Hill and Adams have matchups where I think it could go the wrong way for Mike. So I have Castro winning in an upset this week.
So I have an upset alert as well, but I don't think Nike's going to be able to pull it out. I think it's going to be close. I think the opportunity's there, but I still see Mike pulling this one out. Devontae's got San Francisco. Their pass defense is just destroyed with injuries right now. He alone could put up a monster week, 30, 40 points. So I think he wins by a slim margin.
Next, I have Theopetus Tigers versus Suck My Dicka. This is my game of the week. I do have Sonny edging you out in the close one this week. I think Barkley has potential to have a nice game. I think Kyler Murray has potential. Will have a very good game. Like I said, Claypool was a love for me this week, and I think his wide receivers are both going to have nice days. Not that you have anything really I don't like about your line this week, but I think Sonny's team just might go off. So I have them in this one.
Yeah, that's fair. I agree. So I'll talk about you.
Yeah.
I'll talk about your game next. I actually also have yours as the game of the week. So you're taking on the undefeated New Jersey Sopranos. I think this is going to be a really close one. Right now, the probability is 51-49, so right down the line. I actually think Guy is going to edge this out, though. I think he's going to improve to 3-0. I love Mahomes and Kelsey versus the Chargers. Jamar Chase with no T. Higgins against Pittsburgh. I think he's going to find the end zone again. Melvin Gordon against the Jets. Jonathan Taylor against the Titans. I think they're going to be well into double digits with that touchdown potential. On your side, I love Darren Waller versus the Dolphins. I don't think you guys are going to be able to stop him at all.
Yeah, I agree.
But Aaron Jones versus that San Francisco defense, I think they're going to, if they watched last week, they're going to try to make it a priority to shut him down in the passing game. So not to say he's going to have a bad game. I just think Guy's going to edge you out by a couple points.
Moving on, we have Love Hurts versus Black Sheep. I see Black Sheep improving to 2-1 after this week. Uh, a little, I guess you could call it bias because DJ Moore already scored 22 points. But other than that, I think that Antonio Gibson will not have a great game. I'm not sure how Eckler will do. I don't see him getting a lot of rushing
Yeah.
yardage. I think they'll be playing from behind, but that could boost him in the passing game. Now, I think it will be a close one because I don't like Kenny's running backs going into this week.
Yeah.
I do like his receivers. Kamara versus New England, I had that as a hate.
Yeah.
And Sanders versus Dallas, I mean, I don't like Miles Sanders in general.
Yeah.
I think Rodgers will go off this week, and I think that will make a difference.
Very well. Isn't I mean, this was a tough one to pick. I actually have Love Hurts edging out Kenny just because of how much I hate Kenny's running backs this week. Like
Yeah.
you said, he's really good receiver matchups. I just think Kevin's team from top to bottom has better overall matchups. Hurts against that Dallas defense. There could be a lot of points there. Eckler and KC. It should be another busy day in the receiving game. Cooper Kupp against Tampa Bay. I mean, he's been on a tear. Last year, I think he put up big numbers against them too. Pitts against the Giants could very well see his first touchdown this week. And Beckham against the Bears. Our pass defense is terrible. If they're going to take any deep shots, they're probably going to be to him. And I would not be surprised if he found the end zone this game. So this should be a pretty high scoring game. I just think Kevin has the advantage here.
Moving on, we have Bad Vibes Forever versus You Wish. I think I see Nick having a bounce back game this week and winning. I think Rondell Moore might have another good game for him.
Yeah.
I'm not very big on Clyde, but Kittle on primetime football usually has nice games.
Sure.
So only thing is Daniel Jones at QB. I mean, he does play the Falcons, so we'll see about that. But I
Yeah,
just kind of like Nick's. I think Chubb might have a little bit of a hard time
I agree.
getting into that double-digit points if he does not find the end zone this week because the Bears have a legit front. So
Yeah. This was another really tough game to pick. I actually disagree with you. I got You Wish barely edging out Bad Vibes Forever. On Nick's side, I mean, I really like a lot of his matchups. Kittle on primetime, like you mentioned, Daniel Jones against Atlanta, Najee against Cincinnati. He was one of my loves. I really don't like Clyde. I'm not sure about Rondell Moore. Maybe without Hopkins, he sees that uptick in volume and consistency. And Minnesota's front's pretty good against the run, so I don't know about Carson if he doesn't find the end zone. But on Wilson's side, I think the Ravens are going to go up pretty big over Detroit early, so that could lead to a lot of work for Swift and Hawkinson. That's kind of like what we saw week one. You got Denver's defense against the Jets. Zach Wilson threw 4 picks last week. I know it's a bit odd to highlight a defense, but that could be the matchup for the week right there. Should be a lot of points in that Tampa and Rams game. He has the Stafford and Wood stack. So I mean, if that game breaks right, that's how I see Wilson
yeah.
just barely pulling this one out.
And finally, we have Diego Juniors versus Cardiac Kids. This is my lock of the week. I have Diego winning. I don't think Julian really has much of a shot with CMC only scoring 6 points. I'm not going to say much. I'll leave it to you because I know you
So
also.
yeah, Diego is also my lock of the week. It's a bit biased, like you said before, because we already know CMC is hurt. He only put up 6. I mean, there is a path to victory for Jules still. Dalvin Cook is banged up. He would have to either not play or not play well. Henderson as his RB2 is also banged up. Tampa's run defense is monsters to begin with. So, I mean, he may disappoint a little bit, but I don't see that happening. A lot would have to break right for Jewel here. So, Diego's pretty easily the lock of the week for me.
All right, and that wraps up this edition's episode of. I think this might be our double-digit mark in episodes. I think.
Is it?
I think we might have done 4 last year and 5 in year 1 of the podcast. So this might be number 10. I have to check.
Milestone.
Um, thanks everybody for tuning in. If you're still watching to this point,
Yeah.
we do it for you guys. I love doing the podcast. I love giving my takes. I love getting people riled up. I
Yeah.
love messages I get for weeks after people watch it. You know, that's what I live for doing this. So
What it's all about.
everyone, good luck going into week 3. Hopefully, no more injuries. Yeah, Eddie.
Yeah. Good luck to everybody. Thank you once again for having me, filling in here. It's always a pleasure. We love riling everybody up.
This is a permanent rule now. I don't.
Oh, fuck. Okay.
Just coming
Unsigned
back.
full time. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like you said, we like stirring the pot. We like getting that group chat going, and this is all for you guys, the league, the community. It's a pleasure. So good
All
luck
right.
to everybody.
With that, we'll be signing off. Thank you for watching this point, and
Yeah, thanks.
see you again in 2 weeks.
Good luck.